If there's no trust in a marriage, it's not really a marriage. Sometimes what you discover is worse than what you first thought. I was lying in the dark, looking up at the ceiling, and figured it was around 2 a.m. It's 0:00 in the morning, and I've just got up. I looked up at the bars and thought about how much my life had changed in less than 24 hours. You see, I was in a holding cell at the 3rd police station downtown. I've been charged with damaging personal property and threatening me with an aluminium bat. This morning my wife and sister tried to bail me out, but I told the jailer I'd made other arrangements and for them to leave. I was afraid if I saw them I'd cause them bodily harm. So I'm sitting here cooling my heels and wondering what my next move will be. My name is Steve Moore. I'm 39, soon to be 40. I work for Ace Insurance as a property appraiser. I've been there for 12 years and I make a pretty decent living. My wife, who I've been married to for 17 years, works in an office downtown. We have one son, Kevin, who is also 17 and can be very difficult at times. We are a typical suburban family, and we're quite happy with our routine until yesterday. We had a date night, or should I say weekend, planned for Saturday and Sunday. This week, a couple of times a year, my wife would send our son to her parents for the weekend, and we had 2 days to ourselves. Sue started doing this a while ago so we could have time to reconnect. She would usually leave with my sister and a few friends on Friday night and return just before midnight. Then it would start in earnest. I think if I told you she was going to make love to death to me all weekend, you'd understand what I was looking forward to. I was in charge of the food and Sue did everything else to keep things fresh. We changed the theme each time. One time it was edible things, another time it was a party night, and the last time was a fancy dress weekend, which I really enjoyed. That weekend, we did things we'd never done in our 17 years of married life. I couldn't wait for Friday night. Sue, I'm planning chocolates for Friday night, a buffet for Saturday, and a couple of ribs for Sunday when Kevin gets home. I told her on Wednesday when I got home from work. I picked up a couple of bottles of wine we like, and we'll leave them in the fridge so we don't have to fumble with the ice bucket, she said, as she put everything away. We had a nice dinner on Wednesday and Thursday. Kevin talked non-stop, stopped talking about how his grandparents were taking him to Six Flags and how much fun he was going to have there. Be careful with them, honey. My wife said to our son, remember that they're not as young as they used to be. I don't want you stuffing your face and getting sick on the rides. She warned him. The two of them packed it up Thursday night and left by 9. That evening, he was ready to go. I told Cindy I wanted to be home by 11. On Friday night, Sue told me I really needed this weekend. It's been so hectic lately, so it'll be nice to relax and have some fun without a break. She smiled at me and said, I don't plan on wearing clothes all weekend. I told her I didn't think she'd mind. She said, that would work perfectly, as I started chasing her around our bedroom. I'm meeting with a new client on Friday, and if he signs the contract, we'll have something to celebrate. I told Sue, save your energy because you're going to need it this weekend. She was getting ready for bed and I grabbed her hand. You know the rules, I said. No love tonight, tomorrow night you'll get all you can get. Thursday night I couldn't sleep for a long time. I went over a couple of times to kiss and touch Sue a little. She told me to go back to my side of the bed. I eventually made it to my side and fell asleep. I knew Friday was going to be a busy day, so I got up early, kissed my wife while she was still in the shower, grabbed her ass and ran out of the bathroom before she could throw the wet washcloth she was holding at me. I went downstairs, hugged my son, and told him to behave himself this weekend, and I would see him Sunday night. I got out of my seat, and for the last time, not caring about anything in the world, I rushed down the road this morning. Everyone was in a good mood, and how could it be otherwise since it was Friday and payday? I went over the proposal I was to submit later in the day, and finally got approval from my superiors after 2 minor changes. It was a proposal to insure a boarding house outside of town. The boarding house was worth about $10,000. It's worth about $10 million, and the policy would give our company a nice boost, especially in the current economy. Don't mess this up, my boss Tom said around 3:30. What time are you meeting them? He asked. He wants me there around 6 million so we can go over the rooms after they check in on Friday. I told him what leeway I have as far as the rooms are concerned. I asked, you can go down 3% if you need to, but no more than that. I told him I hung around the office and left around 5. It was only a 25. It's only a short drive to downtown, but I decided to take my time and enjoy the scenic route along the lake. I arrived at the boarding house at about 10:06 and took a quick look at the rooms before going inside. Steve, you made it, Rick said, extending his hand. How is the drive? It's great. You have a really nice place. I told him it must be very quiet here at night. I asked, except, you can hear the loons and owls, but it's so quiet you can barely hear a pin drop. Lots of people come here just to get away from it all for the weekend. We're close to town, but far enough away that we don't feel the hustle and bustle of the city. There's no TV, radio, or cable in the rooms, so there's nothing to distract you. Our restaurant is open until 8, and the lounge has music until midnight. That's what Rick told me. It seems you've got a great opportunity here. I told him I was ready to see some rooms and asked if we could take a look. That's exactly what we did for the next hour. He showed me around, made a few suggestions, and by 7:30 we had an agreement. I gave him a discount of about 1%, but I was well within the range. He signed, I signed, and his wife notarized the agreement. He said he was glad it was over. He told me, let's have dinner before we go back and maybe a bottle of wine to celebrate our new arrangement. I said, okay. And we went to a corner of the restaurant and sat in a private booth. There weren't many people there. I said, we're just making small talk. It's still a little early. Most people get here by 7. I told him that I and my wife usually have everyone settled into rooms by 8. If you like meat, the steak is unparalleled. My chef grills it over an open flame to perfection. We had a great meal and enjoyed each other's company. I wish I had a place like this. There's a lot to do here, but at the same time, a lot of fun. I love people, and running something like this or a B&B would appeal to me. Business is tough, and we make money, but not a lot. If we lived here and did 95% of the work ourselves, we'd never make it, but I like what I'm doing. I was full, and I don't know how I finished that steak. I also gave up dessert and only sipped a little brandy after dinner. I should get going, I told him as we decided to take one last tour of the place at that moment. My life as I knew it was over. We were standing in the doorway of the living room watching couples dancing when I thought I spotted a couple I recognized. Rick said, those are the Carols. They come here a couple of times a year for dinner and then go to the dance floor. I'd love to hold something like that in my hands right now, he said to me. I would too, I replied, because unless my eyes deceived me, that was my wife Sue with her old college boyfriend Bill Carroll. When they turned and walked back to their table, I was right. It was Sue and Cindy's bachelorette party. I watched them laugh, have a drink, and walk back to the dance floor to a slow number. The only reason I didn't rush over and pounce on the two of them was because I was standing next to Rick and had to at least appear professional. Rick, I need to get home. I have tons of things to do for tonight, and it's almost 10. I want to thank you again for I told him as I walked away from the door. Pick a weekend and bring your wife. You'll be my guests. A weekend here will do wonders for your love life. He winked at me and said, I can guarantee it. We shook hands again and I got in my car and drove away. I drove back to town in a day. How long had the first question been? Sue had been dating Bill when we first met in class. They'd been going together for about 2 years. What started as a lively discussion in sociology class had evolved into lunch or two in the student union and finally into dinners. She was torn between Bill and me until I put my foot down. I told her to make up her mind. It's either him or me. I'm not sharing you. She dumped him after 2 weeks and we became an instant couple. We made love. We went on a date to Outback Steakhouse and spent Saturday and Sunday in bed. A month later, Sue found out she was pregnant. At that point, it wasn't even a question of what to do with Grandma's ring. I proposed to Sue, and she said yes. A month later, we were married. Do I regret the way things turned out? Not really. I had the woman of my dreams, and it took 8 months. Later, we had a bouncing baby boy. We were lucky to have help, and we did just fine. We weren't rich, but we were happy nonetheless. And so it went from day one. Even after all these years, we found time to do it at least 3 times a week. I always considered myself a happily married man. I was not diluted, and I assumed my wife thought the same. She did until an hour or so ago. Sue wasn't home when I arrived. Thank goodness. I went to the computer and typed Bill Carroll into Google. Computers are wonderful. There is a tremendous amount of information available. With just a few keystrokes, I found out a lot of information about Bill. He lives about 45 minutes away from us in the same town as ours. When I checked his name and address, I found that he is married to Ruth. If he has a wife, why is he with mine? How long has it been going on? I asked myself. I found out the address and decided to pay Bill a little visit. I went upstairs and started to change into something more casual. When I got there, I was really angry. I threw the suit on the floor. I was so angry I started pounding on the bedroom door. I shouted no wonder she didn't want to fool around on a Thursday night. She wanted to be fresh for her lover. My brain kept telling me, you need to calm down. I grabbed the mattress, dragged it up the stairs, and tossed it out the front door. I poured a little gasoline from the garage and it was ready. I took off the wedding ring and the leather because it was so tight. I secured it to the kitchen table with an abutment knife so she couldn't miss it. Then I took my jacket. I closed the door to my perfect marriage and walked out onto the front lawn. I got my lighter out and set the mattress on fire. I got in my car and headed to the next stop. My sister Cindy's husband David opened the door. Hi, Steve. The girls aren't back yet, but come on in. I was 30, and that was it. I looked at my watch. It was getting close to that. What do you want with Cindy? Maybe I can help you, he said, trying to be helpful. No, this is between me and Cindy, I told him, trying to contain the anger that was eating me up inside. We chatted for about 20 minutes before we heard Cindy's car pull into the garage. When she walked into the kitchen, she was a little surprised to see me. Hey, brother. I thought you'd be home waiting for Sue, she said as she walked over to me. Neither she nor David expected what happened next. Cindy was getting up off the floor, rubbing her cheek, and David was yelling at me, asking what the hell was wrong with me when I finally spoke. Don't ever talk to me again. Don't call me or even email me. You are dead to me from this day forward. Do you understand? I yelled at her as David got in my leave him alone, David, she said. I can explain. Steve, it's not what you think, I can explain. She started to say something, but I stopped her. Explain to Cindy what you've been lying to me and even David about all this time. I don't want to hear any more of your story. Do you understand? I never in a million years thought my own sister would do that to me. I had no idea what was going on, and I could hear her crying. As I pulled away, I heard David still asking her what I was talking about. It didn't really matter to me anymore. It took me almost 50 minutes to get to my final stop of the evening. I verified the address, got out of the car, and opened the trunk, pulling out Kevin's almost new aluminum bat. I started smashing all the windows of the car in the driveway. By this time, the house lights were on and Bill opened the front door. What the hell are you doing? Are you out of your mind? I already called and you better leave before they get here. I called it even. I shouted at the world as I approached the front door. Bill slammed and locked the door, but that didn't stop me. I kicked out the etched glass window at the top of the door and the lights on either side. When I heard the sirens of police cars approaching, I dropped the bat, raised my hands above my head and walked toward them. One of them cuffed me while the other went up to the house to make sure everyone was okay. I was okay. I saw Bill talking to him and his wife peeking out from behind the curtains. I called out again, "Tell your wife what a good wife I have, Bill. I think she'd be interested to know where you've been tonight," I said, looking right at her. I was thrown into the back seat of a patrol car and driven into town. It was too late to do anything today, but I was told I would be able to post bail after my arraignment tomorrow. I'm sitting here in my cell, trying to figure out what's going to happen next in my life. My only sister is now out of the picture because she was covering for Sue. The worst part is that I didn't see this coming at all. I guess I was just happy, gullible, and in a stupor for the past few hours. I've realized that this has been going on for at least a year, maybe more. The weekend lovemaking was probably just a cover for her cheating on me. Midnight morning. By Saturday morning, I was feeling calmer. I was still angry, but the initial shock had passed. I went to court and heard the charges against me. My bail was set at $2,000. I was allowed one phone call, which I made to my boss, Tom. He asked what had happened, so I told him the short version. He was pretty shocked, so I told him where I wanted to be dropped off. I gave him Bill's address. I wanted to ring the bell and start over, but I knew I didn't want to spend another night in jail. I saw the curtain slide closed, but this time no one came to the door. There was no way I was going home, so I just checked into the hotel. I had breakfast at Denny's, which almost brought me back to life. I wanted answers, but now I didn't care. I turned on my cell phone, and there were 5 messages from my sister and 10 from Sue. I listened to one of them, in which my sister was telling me that all was not as it seemed, and for me to call Sue because she was worried about me. I thought to myself, Sue was having about the same thing. Please call me so I can explain everything. She begged through her tears, but I wasn't in the mood to talk to her, so I deleted the messages and turned off my phone. I'd been drinking on Sunday, but not before leaving the house and buying a few things to wear to work on Monday. In the past 8 years, I've never had more than 4 beers at a time, but today I managed to finish almost 12 bottles. Everything was fine until I threw up everything in my stomach and passed out on the bathroom floor. That's the kind of drinker I was. I was a little late for work on Monday, and as I walked past Tom's office, he stopped me and said, "You look like..." The circumstances were unfortunate, but I don't blame you. He told me that if there's anything I can do, just let me know. He said that I held out the signed contract, so at least something good came out of Friday night. I smiled weakly at him. I told the receptionist to screen your calls and take messages for the next few days. Security won't let your wife in until you give the okay. So have a cup of coffee and tell me about what you had to give up to get signed on Friday. Tom told me that Monday was a drag. I was busy rewriting the new contract and sending it to corporate. I got some praise, but it didn't make me feel any better. Security told me that they wouldn't let Sue on the doorstep and asked if I wanted to keep Sue out. I said I did. I don't often travel, but I hate eating alone, no matter how good the food is. Eating alone is a hassle. Instead of Denny's tonight, I went to Olive Garden. I sat at a table for two in the back of the restaurant and ate well. But I would have been better off with a bottle of wine. I don't usually drink, but over the past 2 days I had consumed 2 bottles. I had a lot of alcohol, but it didn't improve my mood at all. On Monday night, I started making plans. I didn't trust Sue, and with my luck she would empty our savings and checking accounts. I pulled out my laptop and logged onto the website. Thankfully, the funds were in place. I made a note to take half of it at lunch tomorrow and open a new account. My medical account couldn't be changed, but the company insurance policy and 401k definitely could. I would transfer both to Kevin if anything happened to me. When my phone rang, I remembered I forgot to turn it off. After checking my messages, I answered a call from my dad. He asked where I was. I told him we'd moved beyond the usual greetings and asked how he was. We were at a motel near work. He said he had 2 women in his house who were upset. They were crying and telling him and my mother that what I saw on Friday night wasn't what it seemed. He asked if I was in the mood to come there that night and figure it all out. My dad asked, but I wasn't really in the mood. I saw what I saw, and there's nothing Sue can say to explain it. I'm sorry they dragged you into my mess, Dad, but if you saw what I saw and it was Mom, you'd kick her to the curb too. I just feel sorry for Kevin. He's going to be stuck in the middle of it all. I told him, "Son, do what you have to do and call your mom this week. She's upset about all this." I thanked him and apologized again for putting him in the middle, especially because of Cindy. I reminded him that it was their actions that caused them to take it all on themselves. I disconnected and turned my phone off. The rest of the week went badly. I got a million messages from Cindy and Sue, but now I was just erasing them without even bothering to read them. I planned to call my mom or stop by on Friday, only if Cindy was there. I called my son on Thursday night and he told me that his mom was shattered and hadn't been to work all week. He said that his mom had asked him to tell me that she loved me and that she needed to see me. I thanked him for the message but told him it wasn't going to happen. "What did Mom do?" my son asked me. I asked Mom, and all she told me was that she was seeing someone from her past. That's all. After that, she started crying again, and that was the end of it. He told me that I would probably see him. I had a feeling I'd eventually have to see Sue, but I wasn't sure when. I wasn't looking forward to it. Saturday was a bit of a waste of time. I spent extra hours at work and was completely absorbed in my own affairs. There was nothing on TV, and I was tired of sitting through gravy, so I decided to take a chance and drove home. When I saw Sue's car in the garage, I thought, damn. I needed a couple of changes of clothes, so I didn't hesitate and walked into the house. Kevin was in the kitchen making dinner. I gave him a big hug. "You know, Mom's upstairs." He said that, as if I was going to run out the door. "I can't hide forever, though," I told him, grabbing myself a cup of coffee. He brought me up to speed and asked me if I was going to come home. "I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but if it does, you'll be the first to know." I finished my coffee and decided to go upstairs to get it over with. As I walked up the stairs, I heard nothing coming from our bedroom. I opened the door. I walked in and saw that Sue was asleep on the bedspread, dressed in sweatpants. Her hair was dirty and greasy, and she looked awful. I walked over to my closet, opened the door, and started pulling out a few things. That's when Sue woke up. Back she shouted, "Not for long, I just came in to get a few things." She sat up on the bed and said, "I missed you." With tears in her eyes, she asked, "What's the matter? Bill doesn't give you enough?" I replied sarcastically, "Steve, you have to believe that I never slept." With him, she said seriously, "I only saw him a couple of times a year, and only at dinner." "Sue, I was there. I saw you. Why can't you for once in your life stop lying? You were laughing and drinking and dancing with him." "What was that? Did I dream it all?" I know it was me. It was the worst nightmare ever. I told her so just go to bed and I'll get my stuff and get out of your hair. You can do whatever you want to, Bill. I don't care anymore. Maybe you can have a threesome with his wife. Then she won't feel left out. She replied, looking at the floor, that she'd known for a year. I told her that she was being foolish. I asked if she might be willing to share, but I was quite clear that I didn't want her to. She shouted, I don't need this. Do what you want. I don't care anymore. I said, okay, I'm going back to picking out. Steve, I have something I need to tell you. I know you're going to be angry that I didn't tell you sooner, but I've kept it from you for too long already, Sue said in a voice just above a whisper. Remember when that girl was kidnapped last January? At Kevin's school, they started an ID bank. They swabbed every student and took a piece of hair and fingerprints. I thought it was a great idea, but when I provided his blood type information from my home file, I noticed something. I ran some tests and found out something awful. I asked her, is Kevin okay? She said, yes, he is. But I found out something I never knew. I asked her again. She was openly crying. I found out that you weren't Kevin's father, she said, sinking down on the bed. I was in shock, leaning against the dresser. I thought it couldn't get any worse. Are you sure? Did you check it out? I asked, in a frenzy. I got tested twice, and both times the results were the same. She told me. I found the one person I was in love with. When he sent a cheek swab, it came back positive. I'm so sorry, Steve, I never knew that. Let me guess. Bill is his father. I met Kevin and chatted with him, but I turned him down. I made an agreement with him to keep him on the down low. I'd meet with him a couple times a year and give him all the info, including pictures, to keep him quiet. Bill was thrilled about having a boy because he and his wife already had 2 girls. Bill told his wife about Kevin, and she made him promise not to tell Kevin who he really was if he wanted to stay married to her. Sue, you broke up with Bill and started dating me. What were you doing sleeping with both of us? I asked when Bill came to get the rest of his stuff. He was really upset about me leaving him for you. We had a few drinks, and before I knew it, we were already in bed. I swear to God that was the only time, and I didn't know Kevin was his. You have to believe me, she pleaded. Cindy knew all about it. I asked Cindy what I should do. She said you would go crazy and it would be the end of our marriage and family. She told me to give Bill what he wants and keep my mouth shut. That way no one would know. I'm sorry, Steve, I told her. I don't know why I didn't trust my instincts. She told me you've been seeing him since last year, behind my back, and using my sister to cover for you. Is that about right? I asked Sue. She just nodded, looking down at the floor. After 17 years, you didn't trust me enough to tell me. Instead, you chose to lie to me. What were those special weekends? Was it just to make you feel better about lying to me? Sue, I said, almost spitting at the thought of it. No, Steve. They started a lot sooner than I found out it was our weekend, no one else's. Please believe me, she said, reaching for me. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. I screamed at her. Our whole marriage had been a lie. I thought things were bad when I thought. You were cheating on me. Now I found out that my son wasn't really my son. Why didn't you just put a bullet in my head? Does Kevin know yet? I asked. No, I haven't told him. He doesn't need to know. You're his father and you always will be. Bill's just a donor. You taught him how to ride a bike, play baseball, and gave him his first car. You're more of a father to him than Bill could ever be. He never has to know. There's only 4 people in the world who know, and none of us will tell him. You'll always be his father. No one will ever know. So now you want me to start lying too? It's not enough that you drag my sister into your lies. Now you want to drag me into it too? That's not going to happen. He'll be told if I have to do it myself. He has a right to know who his biological father is. He has a right to know. You're right. He will always be my son. If that's what he wants, he carries my last name, and I wouldn't change that for anything. I told her you will, however, carry my last name for about 3 more months. I plan on divorcing you as soon as possible. If you had come to me a year ago and told me what you found out, we probably would have worked it out. It might have been a little hard for a while, but mistakes happen. The fact that you've lied and deceived me for the last year is unforgivable. You didn't trust me. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. Without trust, there's no marriage. You ruined a good marriage. All for what? A dinner, a little dancing, and a lot of lies. I told my sister I never want to talk to you again. You're dead to me, I said as I walked down the stairs to the kitchen. Kev, it's time you and I had a little talk.